Ashish, thank you so much for talking to us. Now, your entrepreneurial journey started off here in East Africa, quite an inspiring story for young people. At the age of 15, you started off in the computer business. Do tell us a little bit about your story.
And thank you so much for your time as well. So my family's been in East Africa for over 125 years. My father's family is from Uganda. My mother's family is from Tanzania. And then in 1972, during the Idi Amin saga, we got kicked out of Uganda and we moved to England and started again. In 93, we sold everything in England and we moved to Rwanda. 9 months later, the genocide in Rwanda broke out, unfortunately, where my parents, my sister and I were refugees during the genocide. During that period, though, just before the genocide, I was studying in Kenya. I was studying in Nairobi at St. Mary's, and then I went for my Easter holidays. And the day after is when the genocide broke out. So we went through that unfortunate incident, but luckily we came out alive as a family. But unfortunately, everything we built from 72 to 93, we lost in 94 again. So we moved back to Uganda as a full circle and started again. And that's when I decided that I felt like I wanted to and needed to do something to support the family. So I quit school at the age of 15, as one does. And I set up a little IT business, buying goods from Dubai and then selling them in Uganda. Within 4 months, realized that the entire continent is doing exactly the same thing, entrepreneurs from all these countries. So I moved to Dubai and made that our head office and started supplying IT equipment across sub-Saharan Africa. And that became the beginning.
And at some point, you diversified into other industries from real estate, now into banking. How did that transition happen?
We went into manufacturing and then diversified into real estate, realizing that our people travel so much, they understand and appreciate quality, yet a lot of our developments in our countries were so substandard. And it's not because our people don't appreciate quality, it's because the developers can get away with it. So we felt that if we create a high quality development company and do developments which are world class, they will be greatly appreciated and will last a long time. So real estate became another focus. And then thereafter, financial services is such a huge gap in the market, and being on the receiving end of financial services for 18 years as Mara, as a business, across multiple different countries and companies, we realized that banks are not focusing on SMEs, they're not focusing on businesses. They're focusing on the big corporates, they're focusing on government, they're focusing on taking customers' deposits and putting it into government treasury, but not actually being a bank for business. And that's when we partnered with Bob Diamond, who in my opinion is one of the best bankers globally, and we created Atlas Mara, and we listed it on the London Stock Exchange about 1.5 to 2 years ago, and we now own banks across 7 countries in Africa.
Tell us a little bit about your partnership with Bob Diamond. I mean, this young man from Africa with big dreams who finally decided to get into the banking space, which is very competitive in our market, with one of the biggest names in international banking. How did that happen?
Bob and I met about 3 years ago. Mara had a pretty good background and track record and had demonstrated its ability to execute and work across the continent, and it built a brand. So naturally, at that stage, it was easier. However, when Mara started, it was a complete different ballgame because not anybody would take you seriously, especially being a 15-year-old trying to put on a deeper voice than I actually had, and had a lot of challenges that came with it. And therefore, our youth are not taken as seriously as we should. And this is why I always say that we, the youth, are not the leaders of tomorrow, we're the leaders of today. But we need to take the seat at the table, but we need to take it seriously as well. So, it is a challenge, and that's why we started the Mara Foundation.
If you started all over again, what would you do different?
No, look, I think we as Mara have made a lot of mistakes. We've learned the hard way in so many things. And that's why I think when you think about the core challenges we faced, I think there's 3 elements. Firstly, it's access to capital is always tough, right? Access to debt, access to equity. Mentorship, getting guidance, advice, and hand-holding and support and training from people. I was always reading biographies from people around the world and getting inspired by that. But I never had enough stories to read about our own entrepreneurs on the continent that are succeeding and that are doing well. Let alone did I have access to them. That would never be the case. And thirdly, public policy. Governments really have been, all of our governments have been very focused on the answer to unemployment being foreign direct investment in large projects. Now is when you're starting to see that governments are taking youth entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurship very seriously and realizing that rather than foreign direct investment, it's nurturing small and medium enterprises that's going to create the employment we need in our countries.
Ashish, you're very passionate about entrepreneurship, and I'd like to get your side of this debate where I listened to a TED talk by Sangu Dele on a case for macro investment rather than micro investment in Africa. And basically, what he said was we need to invest more in big business that would then create more jobs as opposed to entrepreneurship at a micro level. What is your take on that case?
I think both are required. I think there's a lot of focus on macro already. There is no focus on micro. That's my challenge, right? My other thing is that when you put up a large plant, and we've been into manufacturing as Mara, when you put up a large investment in a large manufacturing plant, it doesn't create the number of jobs that it's perceived to create, and purely because automation is such a huge thing. If you want to compete with China, etc., in manufacturing, you need to have the best quality. And in order to have the best quality, you need to automate so much. By automating so much, you're eradicating so many jobs that could have been created in that process. But you don't have a choice. You can't, create certain process to be manual, because otherwise you're not going to compete on the quality angle. So nurturing these small and medium enterprises, and I think entrepreneurship is a huge element, and I think it is our answer. Frankly, no matter how many macro investments you do, it's not going to create the jobs we need. We need to nurture people, give them the tools for them to do it themselves. However, I think entrepreneurship.
Now, you're here for the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. Of course, you're one of the speakers. As a country, we're excited to host it, and we can feel the energy from across the country. What's in it for you?
I'm expecting to see a lot of practical things to take place. As Mara, we're making a few announcements under the GES umbrella, under the patronage of obviously President Obama and President Kenyatta. I think our government here is very switched on and very passionate about this cause. So I think this is a great place for this to happen. And I think as a region, East Africa is an extremely exciting region for the continent. And I think countries like Kenya and Rwanda are really kind of taking the lead in that respect.
I just heard that you have been appointed as the chairman of the UN Global Entrepreneurship Council. What does this mean for you? What sort of dreams do you have for that position?
And they've never had any African board members, so let alone African leadership. So it is very exciting for us, for me personally, for us as an organization and as a continent as well. And I think what we're going to be doing is we want to create an impact to entrepreneurs in every country on earth. So really leveraging off what we've been doing on the continent, and this kind of plays in the whole thing that, as Africa, we have so much to offer to the world. It's not a matter of the world coming to help us. We've things like mobile money, which Kenya has been the forefront in, has been taken global now. It's an African initiative that's gone global. Mara Mentor is an African initiative which is going global. So things like this are great to see, and it kind of further demonstrates that we as Africa have the vision and ability to do so much more. So it is very exciting, and we are going to be creating impact to entrepreneurs in every single country on earth, and just making a true difference and leveraging off the UN ecosystem, the UN brand, but making a difference. And we want to make sure it's measurable as well. So very excited.